Welcome everybody to this next in our series of reflecting on our journey with A Methodist Way of Life. My name is David Goodall and I'm the District Mission Enabler in the Yorkshire West Methodist District. And I'm delighted today to welcome Emily and Clare to talk with Mark and I about our journey with God and how A Methodist Way of Life helps us to reflect on that. This is the third in our series, and I hope you've had a chance to watch the other two, or that this evening's video will inspire you to go and watch the other two. In each video, Mark and I welcome guests to reflect on two of the Methodist Way of Life stations. And you can find out more about A Methodist Way of Life on the Methodist Church website or on the Yorkshire West website. We're recording today on Ash Wednesday, so I thought we'd introduce each other by saying who we are, the ministry we're involved in, and whether we've given anything up or taken anything on for Lent this year. Mark.
I haven't actually yet. So my name's Mark. I'm a digital church enabler for the district, and I am a presbyter in the Leeds North and East circuit. For Lent, I haven't actually given anything up this year, but I am reflecting on being creative and just noticing life around me, and just trying to have a pause in the day to really acknowledge that. And that might just be starting off the day with a cup of tea and sitting in the sun as the children get ready for school around me. But I try and find that little bit of peace and tranquility at the beginning of the day. If not, I'll try and find it at some other point. What about others?
I'm Clare Stainsby. I'm superintendent in the Airedale circuit, and I've come straight into this session from an Ash Wednesday morning service where I've just ashed members of my congregations, most of whom I think probably have never had that experience before. But we did it as a sign of our commitment to the journey that we're on as a church and as a circuit, and that has been a really important part of the start of this season of Lent for me. I think I know that as a circuit we're doing a number of Susanna's Table events that are relating to Lent. I'm personally not directly involved in any of them, but I think that as we're in a place of exploring as a circuit what we're giving up and what we're taking on. It feels like life is entirely Lent at the moment, and I think that process is going to be a big part of my next few weeks.
Yeah, thank you, Claire. Thank you. Emily, how about you?
Yes, I'm Emily. I'm the communications and digital lead at Leeds Sanctuary and in the district office. So this year I'm not giving anything up for Lent. I did think about it, but life is so busy. I'm not sure I'd remember, truth be told. But something I am going to really try hard to do is be very disciplined about reading my Lent devotional every day. I'm going to try really, really hard to pick that one up.
Jolly good. David, how about you?
It's really interesting that I wrote this question last week and looked at it about 2 minutes ago, because I've just come back from a weekend of travel to a connectional event and then to a connectional council gathering. So I landed back in Leeds last night, and I haven't really remembered that we'd got as far as Shrove Tuesday and Lent until my family said it's pancakes for tea, Dad. So I think I'd probably like to get back into my swimming. My swimming didn't happen very much in the last month or so. So I think probably taking on swimming is my Lenten thing. But I think I'm deciding that right here and right now. So you can all ask me about it when you watch this video and see whether I've remembered to do it.
Well, fantastic. And I think that is, isn't it? Ash Wednesday is one of those moments where you can suddenly decide and play catch up. I tend to also, when I'm preaching on the first Sunday of Lent as well, kind of give people opportunity to say, well, you know, if you've still been playing catch up, you can still decide now. It's never too late to take up a Lent thing or give it up or otherwise. Today we are talking about Methodist Way of Life, and we're covering two stations, which today is worship and live. I keep on wanting to say live, so apologies if at any point I do just say live. Doesn't make any sense. Worship and live, and we are starting off with worship. And so here it is good to remember that it has a commitment, and the commitment is asking about where we worship with others regularly. And so if that's a bit of a starter question, or to rephrase that a little bit of wondering, where are the places that we all worship? Has anyone got a starter for 10 in regards to where do you worship? Or did I? Oh,
Claire, you go first.
I was going to say I worship very regularly with others, but I'm 99% of the time I'm the person who's leading that worship, and so but it definitely is worship. And if it's not worship for me, then how can it be for others? And I realise that whatever act of worship I prepare, I put into it the things that I need as well as others need. So I'm preaching to myself as much as to anyone else. I'm leading prayers and music and all of that with a view to what I believe God is saying to me as well as to others. That's a really important part of my worshipping life.
thank you, Claire. Emily?
Yeah, so I think for me there's a couple of places. So the first is the obvious one, which is in church. So I go to a non-denominational church. The format is a bit different to a Methodist church. And we will start our service with 20 to 30 minutes of a song of praise. And I find that is really helpful for me, because I kind of wash off the week in that 20 to 30 minutes. And then by the time I hear the word, I'm ready for it. Things are a bit clearer for me. But the other place is when I'm out in nature. So where we live not far from the airport, so there's some fantastic walks around us. And often if I go to the seaside as well, I'm just kind of in awe of my surroundings. And it just occurs, where you kind of stood in this place and you can't help but just I don't even know what the word is, but just surrender to, wow, this is really incredible.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you. How about you, David?
Yeah, so I guess I'm in a role at the moment as a minister, but not in a local church. So actually, where do I worship with others is actually all over the Yorkshire West District. So this Sunday I'm preaching in Halifax. The Sunday after I'm preaching in Clare Circuit in Airedale, and then over Easter I'm up in Settle, where our ministry is on sabbatical, and I'm looking forward to covering Maundy Thursday and Good Friday and Easter Sunday. So I get to worship all over the place with others, and that has joys and it has challenges as well. So I miss as a minister having a regular relationship with the congregation around worship. But I really am blessed by arriving in places and discovering how different people worship. There's a real diversity to the worship we have across the district. Often people say to me, "Oh, we just do it the normal way here." Well, I'm yet to find two normals that are the same as I've travelled for the last 4 years around the district. So yeah, that's for me. I suppose the one place I get to a church in Leeds, and on the rare Sunday I'm not preaching, I'll pop in and worship with them, and that's a really good thing.
I'm not sure if we've lost signal or otherwise, or if it's just on my end. Can you all hear us still?
I'm okay.
Yeah. Oh, was it just my end? Did I interrupt you, David?
Not at all. I'd finished.
Okay.
Do you carry on?
All I was going to say is, for me, I'm a presbyter. The place where I consider about worshipping with others regularly, or recently, should I say, is last Sunday, where basically we had a triple baptism. And so it was lovely, chaotic, but it was really good welcoming people into church who have not been before, but also for those who have had faith or who have faith to come and meet us in that place. And it was, I think there was about 70 people and 20 kids, and it was just the energy was just off the charts, and so it was a real privilege to lead worship in that point, and to meet people in many different places. And it was humbling. It was also chaotic to manage, and there was at least 6 godparents, 3 children, all different ages as well. They were cousins, and so yeah. But it was really good to be part of that. But it was just that interesting kind of way of representing church to this wider community, but leading in worship and working through various kind of feelings and emotions and trying to do a good job of it. But finding God in the midst of all of that. So that was good. That was good. Shall we move on to some next questions?
Yeah.
So it says reflective questions to help us think about the station. One of the first questions is, when have you felt close to God in worship recently? I'm going to throw that open before I pick on someone.
Go on, I'll start. I said that I'd been on this travelling weekend, and I've been in Staffordshire at an event called Wholehearted, which is a gathering for Methodists involved with mission and youth and children's work and pioneering from across the country. And a number of the people from our district were there, which was great to see them from different circuits. And worship on Sunday morning was just beautiful. It was led by a worship band from a Methodist church in London, in Tottenham, and by various colleagues, and it was communion service. And there was lots of bits of it where I felt close to God. But actually, at the end, they said, who would like to share a testimony of what God has done this weekend? And we heard about 8 or 10 people, one of whom was from our district, who I have longed to see having the boldness to go and stand at the front. And they did, and that was lovely. Another one was a man who had said on the Friday night of the event, when asked, why are you here? He'd simply said, because my wife booked me to come. And he stood up and shared on Sunday morning about how God had renewed him and refreshed him. And those stories of people saying what God had done over the weekend in their lives really helped us all feel close to God in worship. So that was a real blessing for me.
Good. Thank you, David.
Shall I just say that? And a lot of what I'm involved in with worship at the moment is I feel inspired and directed by the conversations and the prayers that we share in the circuit prayer meeting on a Monday morning, often in silence, but often with something very profound that appears to come straight from God. And we talk around various topics, and they are completely empowering my worship leading at present, because it's the things that are coming through prayer times that I'm sharing. And in sharing those things, I feel incredibly close to God. I feel like I'm just being used to share a message that God wants to share in a wider place. And so I did that in 2 services last Sunday, and both looking at the Transfiguration, as that was the theme last Sunday, and both just felt like I was able to put across what I believe God was sharing, and that for me felt very affirming in that place.
Thank you, Claire.
So I've debated about how honest to be when answering this question. So last year, I had the luxury of having a reasonable amount of time. I've got a number of small children, so I had a reasonable amount of time last year where I could go and walk and I could really pray and kind of invest that time. And then since the new year, things have been busier, and we've all got the same time, haven't we? I don't feel like I've had that time to give into that. And I've really missed it. But God is very good. And so when I'm sitting in the car, I'm doing the school run, and I'm like, right, I've got 10 minutes. I'll put some worship on, or I'll pray, or whatever. He always shows up. And so I guess for me at the moment, I'm very aware of God's faithfulness. I feel his presence when I enter into it. But I haven't been as good as I was last year about making the time for it.
Bless you. Thank you. For me, I would say, life is quite busy, but I have found running a real godsend for my mental health, my well-being. But I warm up and warm down. Is that the right word? Cool down. And so therefore, kind of once I've gone for a run, I like to just walk back and just relax and take in the feeling, the mood, and just be a bit more reflective at that point. I've got to put my hand up and say that last couple of weeks we've been away, last time I went for a run I was away, and therefore managed to be running alongside the Red Sea. So it was a gift from the family member, which we're very grateful for. But to just find myself just cooling down and warming up at the same time alongside the Red Sea was a real kind of humbling moment, and just a closeness to God, which I was very grateful for amongst a very busy life. And yeah, it was healing for the soul, really healing.
Can I just throw something in that? That next Sunday I'm preaching, this coming Sunday, I'm preaching in the church I grew up in, which I left 25 years ago when I started training for ministry.
Wow.
It's the space in which I first committed myself to God. It's the space where I was confirmed. It's the space where I heard my call to preach, where I was recognised as a local preacher, and where I had my farewell service before I went into ministry. I've not been back that often, but it's going to be, I think, powerful experience being in a space that is so familiar, and where I've met God many times. But I also hope, as part of that trip to that space, to go to the place where I used to meet God regularly when I lived there, and that is the top of Rosebery Topping, where at one point I realised I could stand on the top of Rosebery Topping and look in any direction, and everything that had ever happened in my life was within visual range, more or less. And I was looking for that to go into ministry. So it's a profoundly significant place in my relationship with God. So I'm hoping I get to do a bit of worship there, if the sun's looking like it could be out. So that's
yeah. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, Claire. That's so powerful, and it's always interesting to go back to places where we've been refreshed in worship. I just noticed that as we talked, actually, all of us moved to a place around worship on our own, and it's interesting that the commitment of this statement is about worship with others. And I don't. There's nothing wrong with the conversation we've had. It's the honesty of where we are. But I just noticed that for many of us, this is about how we worship with others, as well as how we pray on our own, which is one of the other Methodist Way of Life stations. And I wonder how I'm left wondering as we move to the other stations, so that we keep to our time, that what is it that when we find when we worship on our own that we could bring into how we worship with others? And I wonder what that says to us as a church as we think about our corporate worship gatherings as well. I'm not sure how we bring the Red Sea to Yorkshire, Mark, but we can think about that. Shall we just move then from the worship station to the live station? Our second station today is the live station, and the commitment is that we live in a way that draws people to Jesus. And I think this is a really interesting station on the Methodist Way of Life map. It comes in the 3 evangelism stations, but actually it's about us, and it's about how we become more the people that God has made us to be, how we are changed and transformed so that we live more like Jesus. And then I guess thinking a little bit about that phrase, which is attributed to Francis of Assisi, that we are called to spread the gospel in all that we do, and if necessary, use words, something that about who we are says something of God. But actually, to do that, we need to be alert to being the people that God has made us to be. And so before we come to the reflection questions, I thought we might just talk together about how do we feel about that sense that actually part of our Christian journey is to be open to be changed ourselves, to become more who God wants us to be. I wonder how we feel about that idea that we constantly need to be changed and transformed. Do we like it? Do we not like it? Do we push back against it?
I think I'm completely committed to being constantly changed. And going back to what I just said about going back to my home church, the last time that I was there before I came into ministry, I had to stand up at the front and say something about what training had done for me. And I took my jacket off as I stood up, and I had a recently passed driving test P on my back. And you'll remember that because I said, actually, it could be an L plate just as easily, because actually I'm going into ministry. I've been formed for that purpose, but I've got so much to learn, and I'm still going to be in that learning zone. And I'm going to say that on Sunday, actually, that 23 years in ministry, and I'm still in that learning zone. I'm still wanting to be changed and transformed by God. I'm absolutely committed to that, and I think that's such an important message for us all to hear. So I say it frequently. That, I've just learned something from that experience, or encouraging others to recognise we're in a learning place, and God has so much to give and to teach that we can always receive.
Thanks, Claire. Emily, Mark?
Yeah, I agree with Claire. I think it's something you really have to commit to, and often on a regular basis. So David, I love the Enneagram, which is a personality typing tool. And my personality type has a very strong inner critic. So I have to be really committed to being open to change, but also to extending the grace that God has for me to myself. I really try to understand other people, and I think I do have a lot of grace for other people, but I don't often have it for myself. And that's where there's a bit of a challenge for me around being willing to change, is because to some extent you have to be able to admit that you're not your best self yet. And that can be really hard.
Sorry, I was quickly Googling because I needed to remember a film, because for me, when we talk about change and transformation, there's a lot of emphasis usually when we first become a Christian. But I think there's something here about this ongoing motivation or the frame of mind. And it just reminded me, bizarrely I know, of a film called Spirited with Will Ferrell, who is like a spoilers, but basically a Scrooge character who's ghost of Christmas past or something along those lines. And there's a moment in the film where he questions whether he is unredeemable, and there's a whole song about it. And the song talks about, actually, it's not in the big and the bold, it's in the constant small things and the day to day, saying I'm going to choose to be this, I'm going to choose to be this way. And that for me really resonates with that kind of to be changed and transformed. It's, in one sense, it is that kind of big kind of accepting Jesus as my friend and saviour moment, but actually it's also in the small little ways and the fractions and the small parts of the day where I go, okay, God, I'm going to be open to you. I'm going to be open to what you bring my way, and I need to continue to be open and willing to learn and to be open to that. And so I think that's where I come with this in the regards to live. It's each little moment as it comes.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark. So with that understanding that we've all shared and talked about, and that actually who we are changes in different ways, sometimes through learning, sometimes through a small church change, sometimes through that work of grace within us. I wonder whether there's been something in the last few weeks or months that's helped you to be more authentically you, which is one of those reflection questions.
I think something that there's been quite a lot happening in my life in the last few weeks, and it has been quite pressured. And I think that two people have reflected the same thing back to me, which tells me something about where I usually am and where I might not be so much at the moment. Because two separate people said to me, "You seem to have lost a bit of your joy." And I didn't realise that I was seen as a person who was joyful about what I believe. But I am joyful generally. But I realised that I'd lost some of the energy of that joy. And so that's the word that's been very much on my mind, that I need to find myself back in that place of joy, which is really important to me. I'm working on it, and so is God.
Thanks, Claire.
Yeah, I think that's really good, Claire. I had a similar conversation with somebody last week where we were talking about how the ways that you invest in yourself and enable you to kind of go out into the world and do what God has called you to do. And perhaps that's why we've all kind of given introvert ways of worshipping as well, as so that we can we can then go out and live as we need to. And like I said, they're not actually that small, my kids, anymore, but I've got 4 kids, so it's very busy. And so I think for me, there's always a sense of doing things for other people, and life is very much around supporting them. But actually, there does come a point where if you don't invest in yourself a little bit, you can no longer keep giving out. I don't know if that answers your question, David.
No, it's fine, and it sparked for me. I think one of the challenges for me with this station over the last year, I think, and it's a work in progress, is learning to leave things undone, and I think it's probably a skill many Methodist ministers need to learn, and it's really hard, and it's doubly hard for me because I'm a completer finisher. So to not complete something is, but I've been learning, actually, if I'm going to be who I'm supposed to be, then actually sometimes I have to learn to let things go, or not finish things, or leave things undone in order to look after the rest of me. And I think then when I think about this as what this says to the world, to go back to the swimming thing for Lent at the beginning, those people I have conversations with about God with at the gym, at the pool, where I'm a member, they've not seen me for 6, 7, 8 weeks at the moment. Very rarely have I been in the last half term. And if they say to me, "Where have you been?" what does it say of who I am as a follower of Jesus if the answer to that is, "Oh, I've just been so busy, I haven't been able to look after my physical health"? And that's, I might not say it quite that bluntly, but actually, if I'm unwilling to leave the to-do list to look after my health, there is a live thing there for me. And it's probably the place where I have the most conversations about God outside the church. And if I'm not there, what does that say about that, as well as the physicality of the fact that I've not been exercising in the way that I like to? So I think that's the thing that I've been working on a little bit recently.
And I think for me, almost as a contrast to that, but also tapping into both what Emily and Clare said about my mental health, and about kind of accepting of where I'm at, various ways in which I mask or unmask from things, and kind of work with that kind of idea of Christian perfection, and sometimes it can be, well, it's hard to live up to, and therefore it's got to be about kind of accepting who God has called me to be as me, rather than trying to compare myself to anybody else or otherwise, but still to challenge myself and to be willing to change, but at the same time to be happy with who God has made me, and therefore it's just getting that right balance, and just accepting. And again, I guess that maybe comes in with that whole completer finisher element, David, of just happy to be who I am in this place, and not put too much pressure on being the definitive article, and yet just kind of lean into God to say, this is all in you, this is all, please continue to be at work in me, around me, through me, and allow others to see that to however you want me to be.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I was talking with a minister over the weekend, and I think the thing for ministers is that there is always a moving sand around you, so that we rarely come to a place where things stop. And I don't think that's exclusive to ministers, but I think this was a minister who's started a new appointment in September, and they were saying to me how they just thought they'd have time to get their orientation and to get their sense of where they are, and you don't. You arrive and the phone rings and the emails start and Sunday comes and a funeral arrives, and actually that being able to find that perspective that you were talking about, Mark, can be really challenging. I think whether your work is ministry or your work is in the NHS or in a school, or that is so similar for so many people. We're coming towards the end of our time, but I wanted just before Mark talk to us maybe about what we're taking away from this conversation, I wonder if you were to name one that you feel today of the list in our questions for the Live Station, which is you: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, or self-control. I just wonder if there was one of those which was where you felt you were today, which might that be? And knowing that I was going to ask the question, I would say gentleness, because I'm trying to have a gentle day.
Kindness is very much a part of my life at the moment, and I think I'm recognising that within churches we've encouraged all our congregations to put kindness right high on the list and think about what they say and how they react to each other. And I'm trying to do the same to others. But I'm also very, very grateful for God's kindness to me at present as well, and the kindness of others. Those moments when someone comes and says something kind, as somebody did at the end of my service just now, makes me feel very affirmed. So I know that is very much on my mind, as is the joy I've already mentioned.
I think for me, it's about peace and finding peace for myself, but peace in others, as well as, dare I say, in quite a volatile world at the moment, trying to find peace and just calm, and also demonstrate that to my children and to family around us, just to be that kind of tranquil place of comfort, of stability, of a firm foundation when all the rest of the world feels so up in the air. So peace is the one for me.
I think mine is joy, because I can imagine our house is very lively, and there is a lot of joy in our house. We really do try to enjoy each other's company, and so yes, I think that's something that we try and do every day with everybody that I would see. Really, is just how am I going to enjoy being in your company?
Yeah, cool. Thank you for sharing those bits. And I guess this is the little conclusion bit where we kind of say, well, is there anything we're going to take away from our conversation today? Is there anything that we may change or otherwise?
I think I've really been struck by the fact that we all ended up talking about worship on our own, and I just want to ponder that a bit more and think about what that, as a mission enabler, as someone who facilitates churches in different ways across the life of the district, what's that saying to us, and what might we do with that?
I was quite interested by that reflection, actually, and just was thinking recently, one of the things that I've done is created the Bolton Abbey stepping stones in church and invited people to take a journey across the stepping stones, recognising that they're wobbly, that there's a lot of water swirling around, that sometimes one bank feels nearer than the other. But in a sense, crossing stepping stones is very much a solitary experience, but doing it collectively in church has been quite powerful. So I think I want to continue to reflect how can I find the things that energize me in worship and encourage others to find them collectively. I think it's quite an interesting thing to think about. Thank you.
For me and worship, it's the thought about mixing it up and kind of making sure that I'm still approaching things fresh without just same old, and kind of trying to feed myself in these kind of upfront kind of leading of worship, rather than just assuming that I'm there for others to feed and sort myself out as well.
Yeah, and similarly to you, Claire and David, I think that was my reflection was, actually, I do crave that solitary worship time, but also I know that when I'm with others, I get so much out of it because I'm a bit of a verbal processor, so we can share together, and so I wonder how I can try and have the best of both worlds.
David, you are muted.
Thank you, Mark. Sorry, I coughed, so I muted so you didn't hear my cough and then you couldn't hear me. Thank you, folks, for sharing, being open and honest in this conversation. It's been really rich. Friends, there is the opportunity on the last Thursday of the month to hear this conversation and share it in a Zoom conversation with others. Please do sign up for that if you're interested. But also think about who might you share this video or this podcast with amongst your friends, maybe someone outside the church or someone in your congregation who might be enriched by listening to it. And do come back next month where we're going to be talking about the Learn Station and the Flourish Station. We look forward to reflecting with you then. Thank you to Claire. Thank you to Emily. It's been great to be together.
Bye.